We all already know where Tom Swarbrick stands, firmly in Israel's corner no matter the cost. And today, sitting across from Mehdi Hasan, that bias couldn't be more obvious. What starts off as a so-called balanced conversation quickly exposes the imbalance. Tom still can't bring himself to call out even a single Israeli atrocity, and the whole time you can feel him straining, desperate to sound sharp, thoughtful, academic. But the harder he tries, the more it unravels. Let's get into it.
Do you see as if there is, what is the day after this war looking like, more and more, in your view?
Yeah, so that was a question posed. I mean, I've been talking about this since the very beginning, both when I was, I had my show at MSNBC, and then I've been doing interviews like this. And when I'm asked that question, the assumption is the war is ending. And I don't think the war is ending. I think Netanyahu, for both political and ideological reasons, is dragging this out. His own generals have told him there's no strategic value in dragging this out. I don't know if you saw on Sunday, I think it was, 19 former Israeli security chiefs, the heads of Mossad, Shin Bet, the military, the police, have come out saying there is no strategic goal here. We are not winning this war. We have not saved the hostages. This is about Netanyahu trying to save his own backside from going to prison. This is about him preserving his cabinet. So the premise of your question is slightly problematic because it implies there is some end point when the Israelis have made it clear there isn't an end point. This is full-on ethnic cleansing, and the President of the United States has given them a green light.
Recent history, relatively recent history, suggests it doesn't go well if you try and occupy a part of the world that is fundamentally hostile to you, to the forces that are going to attempt to occupy it. You'll be in something close to a forever war.
Yeah, which is what, so two things. One is you're right, and that's why so many military chiefs and experts are saying we shouldn't be doing this. There is no military value in occupying Gaza in this way. That's one point. The other point, of course, is that, let's just be clear, again, for the LBC audience, just to understand the law here, Gaza is occupied, according to the International Court of Justice, according to the United Nations. Even though the Israelis pulled out their, even though the Israelis pulled out their settlers in 2005, they removed the settlements from Gaza. They controlled Gaza's air, land borders, waters, who goes in and out, what goes in and out. So that's what the Gazans have been under for a siege for a while. Both Gaza and the West Bank are occupied under international law. What Netanyahu is proposing to do now is going an extra further and annexing Gaza, making Gaza part of Israel. And of course, here's the key point, which is what the world cannot tolerate, I hope, which is ethnically cleansing 2 million people from Gaza. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the Balkans, Tom. Like, ethnic cleansing in Europe was seen as the greatest crime since World War II. The Serbs were the bad guys. Milosevic went to The Hague. This is what Israel's doing now on steroids.
The moment Tom tossed out his second question, I clocked it. No eye contact, no engagement. Just a man looking off into the distance, lobbing a question he already didn't believe needed an answer. He asks Mehdi what the day after looks like, in his view. But we don't need subjective takes when reality is screaming in our faces. As Mehdi laid out, and as the Times of Israel confirmed just yesterday, 19 former Israeli security officials, from Mossad to military chiefs, are saying this war has no strategic value. It's political theater. Then Tom throws out one of the most tone-deaf lines I've heard. It doesn't go well if you try and occupy hostile territory. Gaza is occupied, has been. That's not opinion. That's international law. So what exactly was the point of that question, Tom? Because it sure wasn't clarity.
One would have to disagree with your premise that this was the goal from the start in order to argue this, but let's, for argument's sake, walk it through.
Yep. Okay.
That if Hamas were to surrender and were to disarm, there would be no need, in theory, for Israel to worry about the security threat coming from Gaza if the organisation that committed terrorist atrocities on October the 7th ceased to exist.
Yeah, but I mean, if it ceased to exist, sure, but like, that's not how international politics works, right? You can't just fantasize a solution and make it happen. They do exist, right? They do exist. They are fighting. They haven't been destroyed by Israel. I mean, Israel's failed in its own goals of destroying Hamas. If that's a goal you support as an Israeli or supporter of Israel, it hasn't happened. That's why these 19 security chiefs are speaking out. The 19 security chiefs who are speaking out, the former heads of Mossad, they're not pro-Hamas, Tom, are they? They're not someone. Sure. No one would accuse any of them. They're saying that this is a war that isn't working, right? If anything, it's helping Hamas. Some of us said this on October 8th, 9th, 10th, 2023. If you do this, all you're doing is you are perpetuating the violence. If you kill thousands of Palestinians, leave thousands of Palestinian children orphaned, what do you think they're going to do other than join Hamas? If you destroy Hamas, you don't think...
But was that a rejection, Mehdi, of any attempt by Israel to kill the people who committed October the 7th? Were you implacably opposed to
not at all.
any sort of?
Not at all. Not at all.
No.
Not at all. I think that, look, again, Israel as a country was always going to respond to October the 7th. It would be ridiculous to think that Israel was going to do anything. The issue is how you respond.
Of course.
And those of us who had seen Israel in 2014, in 2009, in 2018, remember, the world did not begin on October the 7th, Tom. We have precedents. We have history. Israel's been bombing and besieging Gaza for decades. The 2014 war, they killed hundreds of Palestinians, including kids. None of us, even I didn't imagine it would be this brutal, this prolonged, this destructive. It's an actual full-blown genocide at this point. So the question is, can Israel respond when its citizens are killed in a horrific massacre? Of course, every country should have a right to protect its citizens from being massacred, but no country has the right to do a genocide as part of its counter-terror operation. That's what you want to, or B, revenge. And again, this was always about vengeance. There's been reporting in the Israeli media, Tom, that from the very beginning, they were bombing sites that they were told there might be hostages there. And they said, we don't care. If you read the reporting from Plus 972, they were saying, we don't care. It was never about the hostages. It was about vengeance. It was about using this as an opportunity to go and try and destroy Hamas. It was about taking back the land.
And just when you think Tom's questions couldn't sink any lower, they do. He starts rambling about disagreeing with Mehdi on Israel's so-called greater land ambitions, then floats this fantasy scenario. What if Hamas just surrendered? What kind of question is that? We're not here to role-play fairy tales. As Mehdi said, this isn't about hypotheticals. That's like saying October 7th would have never happened if Israel hadn't occupied Gaza for 70 years. It's absurd. It ignores history. It erases trauma. Then Tom circles right back to October 7th, like it's the only date on the timeline. Let's be real. That was 2 years ago. Since then, nearly 100,000 lives have been lost. That's the scale we're talking about. And the number of innocent Palestinians killed long before that? Probably too many for anyone to count with a clean conscience. This was never a balanced conversation. It was another missed opportunity for Tom, a man so desperate to appear thoughtful, he ended up exposing on just how shallow his arguments really are. Mehdi probably left that studio thinking, was that seriously the best he had? Anyway, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, drop your thoughts in the comments. Peace out.